Donald Trump plans to impose 25% tariffs on auto imports as well as semiconductors and pharmaceuticals. Hamas returned the bodies of 4 Israeli hostages on Thursday as a part of the peace negotiations. The militant group claims they were killed by an Israeli airstrike.
German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and opposition leader Friedrich Merz faced off in a final debate on Wednesday ahead of elections next Sunday. U.S. President Donald Trump announced on Tuesday that he plans to impose 25% tariffs on auto imports as well as semiconductors and pharmaceuticals. It comes after he already announced the same rate on steel and aluminium imports. Trump has long railed against what he calls the unfair treatment of U.S. automotive exports in foreign markets. The European Union collects a 10% duty on vehicle imports, 4 times the U.S. passenger car tariff rate of 2.5%.
You know, the EU has been very unfair to us. We have a deficit of $350 billion. They don't take our cars. They don't take our farm products. They don't take almost anything. They take very little. And we're going to have to straighten that out. And we will. I have no doubt about it.
Trump claims the playing field is tilted against American companies, as other countries usually tax American exports at a higher rate than America taxes theirs. But many economists that criticize the move argue that the additional tax on importers usually gets passed on to consumers.
Hamas returned the bodies of 4 Israeli hostages on Thursday, including a mother and her 2 children who have long been feared dead. Hamas claimed they were killed in Israeli airstrikes early in the war. Hundreds of people, mostly masked Hamas fighters, gathered at the handover site on the outskirts of the southern Gaza city of Khan Yunus. Israelis have celebrated the return of 24 living hostages in recent weeks under a fragile ceasefire that paused over 15 months of war. The handover on Thursday will provide a grim reminder of those who died in captivity as the talks leading up to the truce dragged on for over a year. On the other hand, it could also provide impetus for negotiations on the second stage of the ceasefire that have hardly begun. The first phase of the negotiations is set to end at the beginning of March.
Relativ stabile, klare Umfrageergebnisse und da müsste nun schon
German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and opposition leader Friedrich Merz faced off in a final debate on Wednesday ahead of elections next Sunday.
Ihre Kanzlerschaft dürfte am Sonntag.
During the debate, the candidates touched on migration, the economy, and security.
Was haben Sie sich für das heutige Duell
While pre-election polls have put Merz's center-right Union bloc in the lead, Scholz said he believes many voters remain undecided.
Ich bin überzeugt, diesmal wird es etwas geben, das es in diesem Ausmaß ganz selten gab in früheren Wahlen, nämlich dass einige auch zur Wahl gehen in die Wahlkabine und sich erst dann entscheiden, wen und welche Partei sie wählen. Und ich glaube, dass am Ende dann viele doch das Kreuz machen, die Kreuze machen bei der SPD und auch mir einen neuen Auftrag geben, die nächste Regierung zu führen.
Merz has made migration and the economy central to his campaign.
Und wenn wir diese beiden Probleme nicht lösen, dann stehen Sie und wir und alle demokratischen Parteien der politischen Mitte bei der Bundestagswahl 2029 nicht vor einem nächsten Regierungswechsel, sondern dann werden wir endgültig in den Rechtspopulismus abrutschen. Und ich stehe hier vorn, um genau das zu vermeiden.
Merz's call for a more restrictive approach to migration prompted opponents, including Scholz, to accuse him of willingness to work with the far-right AfD. Merz insists his position is unchanged and that he won't work with the party. While Merz and Scholz discuss their differences, they seem to agree on a fair amount of issues as well.
Schon auf Koordination an und dass man einander vertraut.
Is Emmanuel Macron's gamble starting to pay off after organizing 2 emergency summits in Paris this week with EU nations and NATO member states to come up with a united front to the lightning rapprochement between Moscow and the US? Well, it looks like Europe is finally invited to the negotiating table. Just after the second emergency meeting in Paris this Wednesday, US President Donald Trump's national security advisor Mike Waltz announced that both Macron and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer will be invited to the White House next week. One of the main fears today is that Trump could reach an agreement with Russia that would work against the security interests of both Ukraine and the EU. But other than the general consensus that Russia is a threat, well, the 27 bloc is still deeply divided on how to respond to this, especially when it comes to whether or not to send peacekeeping troops to Ukraine. However, the French president announced on his X account, former Twitter, that decisions concerning European security will be taken in the coming days and weeks, stating that the 27 bloc is convinced of the need to increase the defense and security spending and capabilities of Europe. Sofia Katsankova reporting from Paris for Euronews.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has said his US counterpart Donald Trump is living in a Russian disinformation space. That comes after Trump claimed on Tuesday that Zelensky's approval rating among Ukrainians stands at just 4%. But the Kyiv International Institute of Sociology said Zelensky's rating had risen to 57% at the beginning of February.
Раз вже говоримо про 4%, ми бачили цю дезінформацію. Ми розуміємо, що вона йде від Росії. Ми розуміємо це, і у нас є докази, що ці цифри вони обговорюються між Америкою і Росією. Ну, тобто, на жаль, президент Трамп з великою повагою до нього відносимося як до лідера народу, який ми дуже поважаємо, американський народ, який нас постійно підтримує. На жаль, живе в цьому дезінформаційному просторі.
Trump also criticized Ukraine for not holding a presidential election that was originally scheduled for March or April last year. That vote was postponed as the constitution doesn't permit elections to take place under martial law, which was declared in 2022, the day of the Russian invasion. The Kremlin has repeatedly tried to use the delay to portray Zelensky as illegitimate. Speaking at the Munich Security Conference on Saturday, Zelensky said he's open to discussing elections in Ukraine, but is reluctant to lift martial law as that could weaken the country's defense. Also on Tuesday, Trump appeared to blame Ukraine for the Russian invasion, saying the Ukrainians should never have started it. That came in response to criticism from Zelensky and other Western leaders that Ukraine wasn't invited to participate in peace talks with Russia and Saudi Arabia. Crowds of well-wishers have gathered outside Rome's Gemelli Hospital as news of Pope Francis's pneumonia has raised concerns about the 88-year-old pontiff's health. The Vatican said in a statement on Wednesday morning that Francis slept well, got out of bed and ate breakfast earlier this morning. His respiratory infection also involves asthmatic bronchitis, which requires the use of cortisone and antibiotics. The statement said the Pope, who had the upper lobe of his right lung removed as a young man, is in good spirits. He was admitted to hospital on Friday after a week-long bout of bronchitis worsened.
Credo che tutti dovremmo sentirci rasserenati al fatto che Papa Francesco sta in buone mani. Il Policlinico Gemelli è una delle più importanti strutture ospedaliere e quindi questo ci fa guardare con serenità questo momento particolare della Chiesa.
Meanwhile, all public engagements on the Pope's agenda have been cancelled through Sunday. The Pope has thanked health workers at Rome's Gemelli Hospital. He also expressed gratitude to the public for their prayers and affections. In fact, many people have gathered here to show their support for the Pope, lighting candles, leaving flowers and cards at the statue of the late Pope John Paul II at the hospital's main entrance. Giorgio Orlandi for Euronews at Gemelli Hospital in Rome.
Wow, ganz schön was los hier. Die Republik Estland reformiert das Schulsystem. Die russischen Schulen werden abgeschafft. Bald werden alle Kinder im ganzen Land nur noch auf Estnisch unterrichtet.
In den baltischen Staaten leben viele Menschen, die Russisch als Muttersprache haben, vor allem in Lettland und Estland. In der estnischen Hauptstadt Tallinn wächst fast jedes zweite Kind mit Russisch auf. Im Nordosten des Landes ist Russisch sogar noch weiter verbreitet.
Ich bin auf dem Weg nach Narva. Estlands drittgrößte Stadt liegt direkt an der Grenze zu Russland. Über 90% der Menschen sprechen Russisch.
Stalin ließ Zehntausende Litauer, Letten und Esten nach Sibirien deportieren. Im Gegenzug wurden Zehntausende Russen im Baltikum angesiedelt. Ethnische Deportationen und Russifizierung gingen Hand in Hand. Die Russifizierung ging auch nach dem Tod Stalins weiter. Es kamen tausende Industriearbeiter und Soldaten, die sich vor allem in den großen Städten ansiedelten. Die Amtssprache in den sowjetisch besetzten Gebieten des Baltikums war Russisch. Mit dem Zusammenbruch der Sowjetunion erlangten Litauen, Lettland und Estland ihre staatliche Unabhängigkeit zurück und Litauisch, Lettisch und Estnisch lösten das Russische als Amtssprache ab. Heute fürchten die baltischen EU-Staaten, dass Putin versuchte, die russischen Minderheiten zu manipulieren. Moskau kontrollierten Sendern wurde nach dem russischen Überfall auf die Ukraine deshalb die Lizenz entzogen. Und Lettland und Estland führen flächendeckend Lettisch und Estnisch als alleinige Unterrichtssprache an allen Schulen ein.
Jüngste Studien in Estland zeigen, fast die Hälfte der russischen Minderheit ist schlecht integriert. Das soll sich mit der Schulreform ändern.